Right, so in a recent video I spoke about a leaked Israeli Ministry of Intelligence document which spelt out a number of options before Israel on how to deal with Hamas and the Palestinian civilians living in the Gaza Strip, whether to allow the Strip to be governed by the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank, whether to let the people of Gaza govern themselves, or the third and preferred option for Israel, which was to send all Palestinians into the Sinai. All of these options were of course being developed in a bid to root out and deal with Hamas. But the obvious conclusion to anyone paying the slightest bit of attention to social media and alternative media outlets is that the minute the Gazans are in Egypt, there's no way in hell Israel will ever let them back into Gaza afterwards. I've said it since these latest atrocities began almost a month ago now, that this is a land grab. The leaked memo appears to have borne that out, but an article passed on to me dating from 2017 shows Israel have been planning this for a lot longer. And there's no pretense of various options or dealing with Hamas here. They want the Gaza Strip for Israel. It's planned ethnic cleansing, and we're bearing witness to it now. Right, so I did a video on the smoking gun, or alleged smoking gun, of a leaked Israeli Ministry of Intelligence document, a 10-page piece detailing the options before the Israeli state dealing with Hamas, with the bits setting off alarm bells being the evacuation of all Palestinian civilians into the Sinai Desert of Egypt, where there is no way on earth that Israel would ever let the Palestinians back in afterwards. It'd be in effect a second Nakba on the basis of taking out Hamas, and once done, Israel would just take over Gaza and slam the door on the Rafah border crossing. 2.2 million people suddenly becoming Egypt's problem, and soon after a problem for the rest of the world, in all certainty. You are kidding yourself if you believe otherwise. If Israel succeeded in depopulating Gaza, there's enough history of Palestinians being shut out of their homelands the first time around. This time it is happening with the blessing of too many Western countries, sadly including this one. Now I'm as guilty as the next commentator in producing that video, in that we thought we had this huge story to break that we'd found, that mainstream voices were not talking about it as per usual. But I take some heart in that, by having never claimed to be a journalist myself, let alone an investigative journalist, I have no background in any of that. I simply have an eye for scrutiny, I believe. I think we have a pathetic media, and I believe it needs calling out and showing up where I see it, and I'm more than happy to have my say on that. But the evidence for Israel's plans for Gaza go back a lot further than this recent leaked document do, as new evidence has been brought to my attention, thanks to a chap called Willy for bringing this to my attention and pointing out where this plan has come up before, in an Israeli political journal called Sovereignty. Now, Sovereignty, despite the fact the copy I was sent was in English, is actually a little bit of a swine to find online, but the Hebrew word for sovereignty is Ribonut. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and indeed it is under that term that you can find this publication online. Now, this journal is the written word, essentially, of the sovereignty movement in Israel, which was founded back in 2011 by another organisation called Women in Green, who are a far-right grassroots organisation within Israel, utterly devoted to the establishment of a state of Israel. It's no mistake they chose to call their publication Sovereignty, because they are obsessed with this concept. This publication is basically the go-to read for news and views amongst the settler movement. And with an average print run of some 150,000 copies per issue, it's a monthly, incidentally. It clearly has some clout, though. You can imagine if ever there was an audience for the Israeli right wing to push ideas of taking even more Palestinian land, therefore, then this is the place that they would choose to say their piece. And in relation to the Gaza Strip, a very pertinent story was published in November of 2017, which was an interview with then Israeli Minister for Social Equality, Hila Gamliel, I bet I'm pronouncing her name wrong as well, entitled, "If There Will Be a Palestinian State, Then Only in the Sinai." Alarm bells ringing yet? Now, Gamliel is the daughter of Yemeni and Libyan Jewish settlers, and has a lengthy record as a member of Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party for opposing the setting up of a Palestinian state. She's opposed to it for the Zionist reasoning that they are entitled to that land. It is their ideological belief, of course, isn't it? It is their land. But also, as the recent Ministry of Intelligence document set out, she believes that a Palestinian state is an existential threat to Israeli security. She's not completely averse to there being a Palestinian state, however, if one has to exist. It isn't her preference, but as long as it isn't anywhere within Israel or the current Palestinian territories, she would accept it. In fact, she's of the belief that if Palestinians want a land of their own so badly, they and other Arab states bordering Israel will agree to her idea of setting one up in the Sinai. She believes this would be acceptable once other states and other countries see that no other possible solution is feasible, so no negotiating then. She believes and that's believed at that time, in 2017, when this article came out, that Egypt would agree in return for aid and help with driving ISIS out of the Sinai. Now, the terrorism of ISIS in northern Sinai, just the northern part of it, was only officially ended in January of this year. The south is another matter, and attacks in the north actually are still ongoing. So this is very much still an issue, especially if you want to put 2.2 million innocent civilians into the mix. The Sinai isn't exactly safe right now. Egypt have been quite cagey. They've been the diplomatic entity, haven't they, acting between Israel and Palestine for some time, because they know if Israel manage to get the Gazan people into the Sinai, they'll then be Egypt's problem and no longer theirs. Now, at the time of this article, Gamaliel spoke in terms of Gazans having a choice of going into the Sinai or not. But if they didn't, then they will still be considered as citizens of Gaza and the Sinai, and they will not get Israeli national status. Therefore, they will still be treated as second-class citizens, apartheid Israel and all the rest of it ongoing. Now, I said a moment ago, a Palestinian state would not be Gamaliel's preference, but she'd accept it if it had to be. In the same article from 2017, though, she was quoted saying, "I do not see any reason for establishing another dictatorial state in the Middle East. But if I am forced to address the problem that our ties and relations with other Arab states is limited by the deep-rooted discourse that such a state must exist, then it is better and more appropriate to move it to another place and not in parts of the State of Israel." I think you'll find Palestine is Palestine, sunshine. It isn't Israel, no matter how much you will it. Now you might be thinking at this point, Damo, this was 6 years ago from a minister who is absolutely horrible, but was Minister for Social Equality. Equality for who? Very much the operative question. What she was saying then, however, is exactly what the leaked document from the Ministry of Intelligence in the last few days has said. So her ideas have been carried forward these past several years. And there's a very good reason for that, because have a guess who is the current Minister of Intelligence in Israel, whose department this most recent document was leaked from? Yes, Hila Gamaliel. With allegations that Netanyahu funds Hamas, we have a situation here where allegedly Israeli-funded Palestinian terrorists have killed innocent Israelis in southern Israel, took others hostage. Israel's attempts at rescuing said hostages has been to bomb Gaza incessantly, not worrying about how many of these hostages or innocent Palestinians get killed chasing down Hamas, who they are also allegedly funding, as I've said. Gazans have been driven south, have been attacked on the way, and been attacked when they get there. So the Rafah crossing into Egypt, into the Sinai, opens. The Ministry of Intelligence are favouring, according to the recent leak, moving all Palestinian civilians into the Sinai for their own safety, even though ISIS might still be operating there. Are we really supposed to believe that the woman running the Ministry of Intelligence, who came up with a plan to move Palestinians into the Sinai 6 years ago, isn't using the cover of all of this violence to see her plan enacted and delivered? To see Palestinians moved out of Gaza, never to be allowed back, and permit Israel to seize that land on the basis it is theirs by some kind of divine right? I believe the end game here has been exposed, but what do you think? Do you let me know your thoughts in the comments below and be part of the conversation? Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation covering the ins and outs of that 10-page leak memo, just to add more context to this one if you haven't seen it already, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.